Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you went in there? Ever struggled to remember someone's name, even though you've known them for years? That happens to all of us sometimes. But what if those little slips start to happen more often? What if your loved one begins forgetting the day of the week? Or they repeat the same story over and over again? Or suddenly seem confused in places they used to know so well? At first, you might brush it off, it's just old age, you tell yourself. But then, something feels different. They seem distant, upset, even angry for no reason. And deep inside, a quiet worry starts to grow. Could this be something more? Could these be early signs of dementia? If you've noticed changes like these in someone you care about, you're not alone. And what you learn today could make all the difference. Dementia is a word that many of us fear, and yet, not many of us truly understand it. It's more than just forgetfulness or growing old. It's a serious condition that slowly takes away a person's memory, thinking, and even their ability to do simple everyday things. And the truth is, it can affect anyone. According to the World Health Organization, over 55 million people around the world are living with dementia right now. And every year, nearly 10 million new cases are diagnosed. That means one person develops dementia every 3 seconds. Most people don't know this, but the early signs can be very easy to miss. They don't always show up with big changes right away. It often starts small, a forgotten birthday, confusion about time, misplacing everyday items like keys or glasses. Things we might think are just part of aging, but sometimes, they're not. And when we ignore those signs, hoping they'll go away, we might miss the chance to help our loved one early. When the condition could be managed better, and their quality of life could be improved. That's why this video is so important. Today, we'll walk you through 5 early signs that seniors may show before dementia fully takes hold. We'll explain what to look for, what these changes might mean, and how you can lovingly support someone who may be struggling. Because when we recognize the signs early, we don't just give them better care. We give them more time, more dignity, and more chances to stay connected with the people and the memories they love most. Let's begin. Sign 1, memory loss that affects daily life. As we get older, it's completely normal to forget little things here and there. We might walk into a room and forget why we came in. We might misplace our reading glasses or forget someone's name for a moment. That's just part of aging. It happens to everyone. But sometimes, the memory problems go deeper than that. And when they do, it could be a quiet warning sign of something more serious, like dementia. One of the first signs many people notice is memory loss that gets in the way of daily living. This isn't just about forgetting where you put your keys. It's about forgetting things that were always part of your routine, like how to make a cup of coffee the way you've done for years, or missing a doctor's appointment you were just reminded about. For example, you may notice a loved one asking the same question again and again, even after you've just answered it. Or they might forget something you just talked about a few minutes ago. They may begin to rely more and more on sticky notes, notebooks, alarms, or family members to keep track of things they used to handle on their own. It can be small things at first, like forgetting to take their medications at the right time. Or leaving food on the stove and walking away, not realizing it's still cooking. Or missing familiar routes when driving or walking around the neighborhood. These aren't just occasional forgetful moments. They happen more often, and they disrupt the flow of everyday life. That's when it becomes a red flag. According to the Alzheimer's Association, about 1 in every 9 people aged 65 and older in the US is living with Alzheimer's disease, the most common type of dementia. That means millions of older adults are facing memory challenges, often in silence, and sometimes without even realizing it. Early memory loss may seem harmless, but when it begins to affect daily routines, how someone cooks, takes their medicine, manages money, or keeps track of time, it should never be ignored. The good news is, noticing these signs early gives families a better chance to get help, receive a diagnosis, and make changes that can improve safety, comfort, and quality of life. There are treatments and support systems that work better when the signs are caught early. If you or someone you love is showing these signs, don't panic. But don't brush it off either. Talk to a doctor. Talk to your family. Because when it comes to memory loss, early attention could make all the difference. Sign number 2, mood or personality changes. We all go through changes in our moods from time to time. Sometimes we feel down, especially on cloudy days. Sometimes we get irritated or upset when things don't go as planned. That's just being human. But when someone's overall mood or personality begins to shift noticeably, and especially if it happens often or without a clear reason, it could be an early warning sign of dementia. People in the early stages may begin to act differently than usual. A gentle and easygoing person might become anxious, angry, or suspicious. Someone who was always social and talkative may suddenly become quiet, withdrawn, or uninterested in family gatherings. These changes may come as a surprise, even to the person going through them. They may not understand why they feel the way they do, or why they've lost interest in the things they used to enjoy. Sometimes, these shifts in mood or behavior are the brain's way of reacting to the confusion and memory changes happening inside. And even though it may look like the person is just being difficult or not themselves, it's important to respond with compassion. I remember my dear friend Mr. Howard, who was once the heart of our church community. He was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, always laughing and cracking jokes with everyone. But over time, we began to notice he was different. He started getting irritated over little things that never used to bother him. He snapped at people during choir practice, and once, he even accused someone of stealing his Bible, only to find it later in his own bag. At first, we thought he was just having a bad day. But these moments became more frequent. One Sunday, he walked right past me without saying hello. This was the same man who never missed a chance to hug you and ask how your week was. Instead, he sat alone in the back pew, looking confused and withdrawn. That was when we knew something more serious might be going on. According to experts, these types of mood and personality changes are common in early dementia. In fact, the Alzheimer's Association reports that many people with early Alzheimer's experience depression, anxiety, or even paranoia. They may feel afraid or frustrated because they can sense something is wrong, but they can't always explain it. For families, these changes can be especially hard. You might wonder, why is mom suddenly angry all the time? Or, why doesn't dad enjoy gardening anymore? It's painful to see a loved one act so differently, but it's not their fault. If you notice someone becoming more moody, suspicious, fearful, or distant than usual, and it's not tied to a major life event, don't ignore it. Write it down. Talk to a doctor. And gently bring it up with love and patience. Just like with memory loss, early action makes a difference. There are ways to manage these changes with support, counseling, and sometimes medication. And most importantly, your understanding and kindness can be a powerful comfort to someone who may be struggling silently. You don't have to have all the answers. Just being present and noticing the signs could be the first step toward helping someone you love. Sign number 3, trouble following conversations. We've all had moments when we don't quite catch every word in a conversation. Maybe we were distracted, or the topic was a bit confusing, and we had to ask someone to repeat themselves. That happens to the best of us. But if you or a loved one start regularly losing track of conversations or forgetting what was just said, this could be a sign of something more serious. People in the early stages of dementia or Alzheimer's often struggle to follow even the simplest conversations. They might lose their train of thought, forget key details, or repeat themselves because they're not able to remember what's been discussed. The more this happens, the more frustrating it can become, not just for the person experiencing it, but also for those around them. After all, you may wonder, why can't they follow what I'm saying? This was never a problem before. But the truth is, it's not their fault. I remember my Aunt Grace, who was always so sharp and quick-witted. She could carry on a conversation with anyone, at any time, about anything, whether it was the latest neighborhood gossip or the best recipes for Christmas cookies. But one summer, I noticed something strange. We were sitting at the kitchen table, enjoying our morning coffee, and I was telling her about a recent trip I had taken. As I was describing my visit to a new park, Aunt Grace looked at me and said, "Did you go to the one near the lake?" I nodded, thinking it was just a natural follow-up question. But when I continued telling the story, she asked me again, "So, where was it again?" I thought maybe she had just forgotten, but this happened multiple times during our conversation. It was like she was lost in her own thoughts, unable to connect what I was saying. Later, I realized that Aunt Grace was struggling to follow our conversation because of early signs of Alzheimer's. It was heartbreaking. Her confusion wasn't out of disinterest, it was because her brain was struggling to process the information I was sharing. According to experts, trouble following conversations is one of the most common early signs of dementia. In fact, a study published by the National Institute on Aging found that about half of people with early dementia have difficulty keeping track of conversations. They may become easily distracted, lose their place in a discussion, or even repeat the same questions over and over. These signs aren't just about memory loss, they're also linked to the brain's ability to process and make sense of new information. As the brain changes, it becomes harder for someone to follow along with complex thoughts, especially when the conversation involves multiple people or a lot of details. If you notice someone frequently losing their place in a conversation, asking the same questions over and over, or struggling to understand simple details, it's a good idea to gently approach the topic with love and patience. Try to repeat things calmly and slow down during discussions. Early diagnosis is critical for anyone experiencing these challenges. If you or someone you care about is showing difficulty following conversations, speak with a healthcare professional. There are therapies and strategies that can help slow the progression of symptoms and make life a little easier. Patience and understanding are two of the greatest gifts you can give to someone who's experiencing these changes. It's not about fixing the situation, it's about walking with them through it, side by side. Remember, a conversation isn't just about words, it's about connection. And even if the words aren't always clear, your presence and your love can still speak volumes. Sign number 4, loss of interest in favorite activities. Have you ever found yourself no longer enjoying something you once loved? Maybe you've always enjoyed gardening, reading a good book, or spending time with friends. But over time, you just couldn't seem to get excited about those activities anymore. For seniors, this shift can be one of the more noticeable signs that something is changing. It's especially concerning when someone begins to lose interest in things that once brought them joy, fulfillment, and comfort. Loss of interest in hobbies or favorite activities isn't just a sign of aging, it could be an early indication of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. At first, the change may be subtle, a few days here and there when your loved one doesn't feel like doing their usual activities. But over time, this lack of interest may become more persistent and widespread. People with early-stage dementia often begin to lose interest in activities they used to enjoy. For instance, someone who once loved reading books might suddenly struggle to focus on a story or forget what they read just a few pages ago. A long-time golfer might lose interest in the game, even though they had spent years perfecting their swing. The activities themselves seem to lose their appeal, it's as if the person has lost the motivation to engage in them altogether. Loss of interest can be more than just physical fatigue. In some cases, it's tied to mental or emotional changes. The brain, which controls motivation and emotional responses, is often affected by dementia, and as it deteriorates, so too does the ability to enjoy familiar activities. Studies show that one of the early signs of dementia is a significant loss of interest in hobbies and activities. According to the Alzheimer's Association, 50 to 70% of people with Alzheimer's disease will experience a reduction in their engagement with activities that were once important to them. This could include a decline in socializing, a lack of interest in favorite hobbies, or even abandoning long-term projects they once cared deeply about. The reasoning behind this change is often related to the brain's decreasing ability to process emotions and stimulate motivation. As the disease progresses, areas of the brain responsible for memory, decision-making, and emotional regulation are affected, making even the most beloved activities feel less meaningful or enjoyable. For those with dementia, there may be increased difficulty with concentration and processing complex information, which could make it hard to focus on a book or understand the rules of a favorite game. Some people may experience feelings of confusion or disorientation, which might lead them to avoid activities that once felt safe and comforting. What can be done if you notice this sign in a loved one? First, don't ignore the changes. Loss of interest isn't always a sign of something as serious as dementia, but it's always a good idea to monitor the behavior and talk to a doctor. The sooner you recognize these changes, the sooner you can find ways to help your loved one. Encourage them to stay involved in activities they used to love, but in a gentle, non-pressuring way. Finally, be patient with yourself and your loved one. It can be difficult to watch someone lose interest in things that once brought them joy, but remember that this is part of the disease's progression. Providing support, comfort, and opportunities for meaningful connection is the best way to help them stay as engaged as possible. Remember, even though the loss of interest in favorite activities can be a sign of something more serious, it's also important to note that everyone experiences these changes differently. With patience, support, and professional guidance, your loved one can continue to find joy in life, even when things seem difficult. Sign number 5. Withdrawing from social settings. Have you noticed someone you love becoming more distant lately? Someone who used to enjoy family gatherings, chatting with friends, or even just spending time with neighbors might start to withdraw from those activities. At first, it might seem like a phase. They're tired, they need some alone time, or they just don't feel like going out. But when this withdrawal becomes more frequent and persistent, it can be a serious warning sign. Withdrawing from social settings, whether it's avoiding family gatherings, skipping out on church services, or simply staying in more often, can be a sign that something deeper is happening. For seniors, this change can often signal the early stages of dementia, including conditions like Alzheimer's disease. It's a sign that the brain is struggling with how to process, interact, and engage with others in the way it once did. Why does this happen? One of the main reasons seniors with dementia start to withdraw socially is due to the way the disease affects the brain. Dementia impacts several brain functions, including memory, communication skills, and emotional regulation. As a result, the individual may begin to feel confused or frustrated when they're in social settings. They might struggle to follow conversations, remember people's names, or engage in activities, and as a result, they may start avoiding these situations altogether. Social interactions require a lot of mental effort. From keeping track of conversations to reading social cues, it can be overwhelming for someone with cognitive decline. For example, imagine being in a room full of people, but not being able to follow the conversation or remember who's talking. This disconnection can lead to feelings of embarrassment, shame, or isolation, causing the individual to retreat even further. I remember a dear friend of mine, Margaret, who was always the heart of our book club. She loved reading and would always lead the discussions with passion and insight. We used to meet every Thursday afternoon at the local library, and Margaret was the one who kept the energy high with her witty comments and clever observations. But one day, when we were discussing a new novel, Margaret seemed quieter than usual. She was having trouble following the conversation and kept asking, "What are we talking about again?" At first, I thought maybe she just hadn't had a good night's sleep, but as the weeks passed, things didn't improve. Margaret began skipping our meetings altogether, and when I called to check in on her, she told me she just didn't feel like coming anymore. She mentioned that she couldn't follow the discussions as well and felt embarrassed to be around the group. Eventually, Margaret's family sought help, and after several evaluations, it was determined that she was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. Her withdrawal from social situations was a coping mechanism, her way of avoiding situations where she felt she was no longer in control or able to keep up. Research shows that social withdrawal is one of the earliest signs of dementia. According to a study published by the National Institute on Aging, social isolation and withdrawal are linked to increased cognitive decline. People with dementia often begin to experience anxiety or frustration when faced with social situations that were once easy or enjoyable. They may start to feel as though they don't belong or can't keep up, which can lead to a preference for staying alone rather than facing these challenges. The problem is that social isolation can actually worsen cognitive decline. When someone withdraws from social interactions, they lose the benefits of mental stimulation and emotional connection. Social engagement is an important part of maintaining cognitive health, and when it's lost, the individual's condition can deteriorate faster. If you notice a loved one starting to withdraw from social activities, it's important to address it gently but directly. Try not to pressure them, but instead, offer a sense of understanding. Let them know that you're there for them, whether they feel like socializing or not. Start by making small changes to encourage interaction. For instance, instead of large family gatherings, try more one-on-one visits or small, intimate outings that are less overwhelming. A short walk in the park, watching a favorite TV show together, or enjoying a hobby they used to love can help maintain a connection without the pressure of a full social setting. Social engagement doesn't have to be complex or grand, it's about finding the right balance. Whether it's sitting down for a cup of tea or just reminiscing over old photographs, these small moments can make a big difference in helping them feel connected and less isolated. Social withdrawal is often a sign that someone is struggling in ways they may not know how to express. If you notice a loved one pulling away from social settings, don't brush it off as just a phase. It could be a sign of early-stage dementia or another cognitive issue that requires attention. By responding with patience, empathy, and understanding, you can provide much-needed support and help your loved one stay connected with the world around them, even as they face these challenges. Final thoughts and what you can do. Watching a loved one experience changes that signal the early stages of dementia can be overwhelming and heart-wrenching. It's not easy to see someone who once had a sharp mind and vibrant personality gradually struggle with everyday tasks. But remember, you are not alone in this journey. It's important to remember that early detection is key. The sooner you can recognize the signs and seek help, the better the chances are for your loved one to receive the care, support, and treatment they need to live a fulfilling life. It's not about finding a cure, but about enhancing quality of life and preserving dignity. Talk to a doctor. If you're noticing signs like those we've discussed, don't hesitate to talk to a healthcare professional. A doctor or neurologist can help you understand what might be going on and guide you through the next steps. Early intervention makes a huge difference, whether it's finding ways to manage symptoms or exploring new treatments. You don't have to navigate this journey alone. Medical professionals are here to provide guidance, resources, and reassurance. Keep a simple journal of changes. Sometimes, the little things can slip through the cracks. By keeping a journal of any changes you observe, you'll be able to provide clear, helpful information to your doctor. Write down moments when memory slips happen, when conversations become difficult, or when your loved one starts withdrawing. This will give the doctor a clearer picture of what's going on and help them make a more accurate diagnosis. But don't just focus on the struggles. Also, note the moments of joy, the good days, and the things that still bring a smile. Keeping a journal is a way to stay connected to both the challenges and victories, no matter how small they may seem. Adjust daily routines to support independence. We all want to preserve the independence of our loved ones for as long as possible. Even in the face of cognitive challenges, there are small, thoughtful changes we can make to help maintain a sense of autonomy and self-esteem. Create predictable routines to help reduce anxiety. Establishing a consistent schedule for meals, medications, and activities can offer comfort and stability. Simplify tasks without taking away their sense of accomplishment. For example, instead of asking them to cook a full meal, you could prepare simpler, pre-cut ingredients they can easily assemble or microwave. Encourage familiar activities they've always enjoyed, but in ways that are less demanding. For instance, if they love gardening, maybe they can help with planting or watering in small ways that are still meaningful but won't overwhelm them. Above all, remember that these adjustments are for their comfort and dignity. It's about honoring the person they still are while offering the right kind of support. Your support means the world. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the changes happening, but one of the most powerful things you can offer is your love and presence. Your loved one may not always remember everything, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Your kindness, patience, and willingness to adapt to their new needs are the greatest gifts you can give. Be there for them, not just in the difficult moments, but in the joyful ones, too. Make new memories, even if they're simple ones. Sometimes, it's the small moments that can make the biggest difference. And remember, you're not in this alone. Reach out for support, lean on others, and allow yourself the grace to care for both your loved one and yourself. In the end, it's the love, care, and understanding we show each other that will light the way through these challenges. If you or someone you love is showing signs of dementia, it's time to take action. Don't wait, early intervention is the key to better care and a more fulfilling life. Talk to a healthcare professional today to discuss any changes you've noticed. They're here to guide you and provide the support needed during this time. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Whether it's seeking a diagnosis, adjusting routines, or finding new ways to stay connected, the sooner you act, the better the outcome. Your loved one's health and happiness matter, and there's no better time than now to take that first step. Together, we can create a future where everyone, no matter their age, can continue to live with dignity, love, and joy.